Hey, babes. Happy Sunday. Happy Veterans Day weekend to all of you in the US and to anyone listening who is currently serving or has served in the military. Thank you for your service. Also, happy birthday. Happy 249th birthday to the United States Marine Corps. You can celebrate tonight by eating a crayon for Chesty. It's a little bit of an inside joke. I'm not a Marine. I just tend to find myself surrounded by them, and I love crayon jokes. This week's guest, a little bit of a remix. I'm talking to my friend Joe Dobry. We know each other from my Baltimore days before I trained jujitsu. We go back to like 2014, 2015. Joe has always been an MMA guy, Muay Thai, boxing, wrestling, also jujitsu. Recently, he's become more of a grappler. I'll tell you, he used to hate grappling day when he did MMA, but now it's become much bigger in his life. And he's also a girl dad, which, this is a women-centered podcast. So, of course, we talk about that. And we talk about his daughter who trains, although currently can't train because she has braces. Definitely some great perspectives on that. And this episode is really more of a conversation, kind of a back and forth about our experiences training, which is kind of cool because, I didn't train when I lived in Maryland, so I'm not as familiar with the grappling scene out there. It's funny, I have a decent amount of friends from out there who all train, so it's kind of cool that we all share that in common. But yeah, it's not an environment I'm as familiar with. I started training out here on the West Coast, and it's just interesting the different vibes in the environment there from talking to Joe. So I hope you all enjoy it. And here's my interview with Joe Dobry. Thanks. Hey Joe, how are you today?
I'm so first things first,
Yeah,
how are you? How are you? Are you good?
I am fantastic. I'm
That's
doing
awesome.
good. Had a good day today. Went to open mat, recorded some interviews, doing the meal prep thing. It's all good.
That's good, I'm happy for you. You finally came into my world of combat sports. It's like, you're not like a holdout, but I could just see you. I'm glad that you look like you're enjoying yourself when you're training. Like you just dove in like head first, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. How about you? How are you today, Joe?
Just tired from work. I'll be on the mats tomorrow. T Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday. I got to work on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, I got to train. We have Pat Downey's getting his blue belt at our school. So all the higher level guys have to go grapple with Pat Downey. But, you know, it's not all is lost because he's got to wear a gi. So maybe you can just like it's like riding a bull, hold on for dear life, and just it's like you just survive 8 seconds,
Get a
right?
grip.
Yeah, get a grip and just pray,
Yeah.
that I'm gonna tell you wanna
Yeah.
before we get into a lot of whatever it is you want to talk about. That guy, I've been wrestling most of my life. That guy is like it's like when you train with someone like that, it's like when you're such at like the tippy top level of like U.S. Olympic wrestling. I mean, there's only but a handful of guys that are better at him, like at his weight at the heavier weight class. Was it 97 kilograms or something like that? Whatever the metric system, but it's
Yeah.
insane. Like it's just so insane, like how good he is. It's wild, like in the way that he can process
Hmm.
the information and move and like a positional switch. It's just insane, like the talent, and you just sit there like in amazement, like wow, like you're really like learning from somebody who, like when you send me that picture of like Damian Maya, like it's like that level too. It's like you're like, holy crap, like there's a
Yeah.
guy like you just are like you just sit in amazement because of the way that they move and think. It's like they're like light years ahead of
Hmm.
like the lay person.
Yeah. It's crazy in jujitsu just like how accessible those people are too. Like, you know, because it's such a niche sport. It's like, oh yeah, like casually my professor is friends with Damian Maya, so he just came and taught a class one Wednesday.
Right. I mean, that would be like a dream come true for, I would say, most people who actually train or take it seriously. That if you had someone of like that
Hmm.
caliber, I mean, we're lucky that Pat comes in with us. I mean, like, don't think that we're
Yeah,
not
that's
a
pretty cool.
lucky. like a lucky group of people that are like, this guy, like he's cool enough to come in and hang out with us and, do all the, show us stuff and out of the, almost like the kindness of his heart. It's like, he's given back to a lot of people, that's a good thing right there. But, it's the same thing. It's like,
Yeah.
Damien Maya comes in and be like, hey, who wants to roll? And it like the line just starts out the door. Like you just can't
Yeah.
you can't replicate those experiences or those or like those interactions with people. And like I had that a few years ago with Marlon Moraes when he came in and when I was still kickboxing and like he came in and he trained with us and he did rounds with us and he showed us all these cool tricks. Jason Utz from Glory Kickboxing, the same thing. The guy, he had the fastest knockout in Glory history. And it's like, wow, like these are guys that you've seen on television. Like you've watched them, like I've watched obviously Marlon on, in the UFC, Jason Utz in Glory. And it's like, holy crap, like you're literally here and you're trying to punch me in the face or kick me or, do that stuff. It's when they say don't meet your heroes. Well, sometimes in MMA or especially or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, collegiate wrestling or whatever one that you prefer, you might get beat
Mhm.
up by your hero. I mean, it's really or somebody you admire. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it may be best that you don't meet those people. Is that you may not like them when you're done.
Yeah. I took a Hyperfly was they do these studio sessions sometimes at their warehouse here in San Diego, and they had a seminar, and Leticia Cardozo taught it, and at the end of it was like open mat and rolling, and she was like, Laura, like, do you want to roll with me? And I was like, wait, what? Like, me? And then the whole roll, I was like, don't look stupid, don't look stupid, don't look stupid.
Right. Trust me, it's happened to me before. I think it happens to all of us too, because when you're like, I guess in the game, as long as I've been, you don't really get shook by a lot of people, but
Hmm.
when you finally, meet that person or somebody like that you admire, or maybe like there's a couple guys that I wouldn't mind
Hmm.
competing against, like in the just to locally, maybe like in the DMV or Southern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, like guys who I kind of follow here and
Hmm.
there, like you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, like like you want to measure yourself against at least someone, right?
Hmm.
And then you get like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, the old ADCC champion or one of the qualifiers, he showed up at Liquid Swords last weekend, and it's like, how can you compete against that guy?
Hmm.
You can't. It's
No,
it's like it's
you
like it's
learn.
not
You
fit,
survive the roll and you learn.
right?
Yeah.
That's like I went against the back last at the end of last year in December. I was rolling with the Pan American blue belt champion, and I'm like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
what can I do with this guy? Nothing.
Hmm.
Like he's like destroying black belts, and there's like, oh, okay, just survive, and it survive, and
Yeah.
live to train another day. I mean, I'm 42 years old. Like
Hmm.
my my time of like competing with the young guys, if it's not over, it's I'm coming up on the end because it hurts some days. It really does.
Yeah. So, we kind of started in the middle of the conversation. If you could introduce yourself and give your background in martial arts.
Okay, so I'm Joseph Dobry. I've been training BJJ for about 15 years. On top of that, I've been kickboxing for right around 20 years. I did freestyle wrestling, folk style wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling, and well, regional boxing. I guess that's the best way to put it. Like when I was younger, white papers for golden gloves and silver gloves competition, and I've just been in that.
Mhm.
I've been in that world a long time, and then uh, right around like 2000 and like 2009, I kind of wanted to like just dip my foot in like the MMA pool after, just messing around, like doing like smokers and kickboxing and, doing stuff like that. And, just trying to like find your way. And then kind of got hooked into MMA, which suited my skill set a little bit more. And as I got older,
Hmm.
I always was really reticent of like grappling, just because it was like natural for me to actually want to punch and kick somebody. So about a year, I was having like a really hard time about a year ago, or a little over a year ago. Just a lot of personal, stuff going on. Everybody goes through stuff. So I did. So
Hmm.
I went to Towson University for college, and studied psychology. So I tried the replacement theory. So you
Hmm.
replace one thing with something else, and so I replaced something with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. One thing that I honestly
Hmm.
I didn't really care for, to be quite honest with you. I
Yeah.
I was never like a Jiu-Jitsu nerd or practitioner, or whatever, however anybody wants to call it. I don't want to offend anybody, but just one of those guys who, you have people who love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like, you have those people who are, they are all
Yeah.
about it. They love gi Jiu-Jitsu. They love no gi Jiu-Jitsu. They love, they love the camaraderie. They love me. I literally was training out of spite for about a year, and I was getting so good so fast. I was doing two a days between work. I would either train in the morning before work, and then go train after work, and then go lift weights, and then train again. And then slowly but
Mhm.
surely, I understand the practical application of jujitsu, like in the real world situation, you know, just because of my job and everything. Like, it saved my life once
Mhm.
at work, so we don't need to get into all that, but I mean, I'm telling you, it does work. But
Yeah.
as far as like the competition aspect and stuff like that, it gave me a reason to compete again, if that makes sense. It gave me, it really like turned my life around for the positive. And people, you hear stories about stuff
Yeah.
like that where people are like, this stuff like saved my life. Well, yeah, I'm not gonna lie and say it didn't. I mean, it really did. It helped me so much get through such a bad time that I was having. And now I'm like, okay. Like, I used to dread training. I'm gonna tell you, going through fight
Mhm.
camp, right? I hated grappling day.
Mhm.
I could not stand it. I was like, and mind you, I came from wrestling, which was the funniest thing. So I'm like,
Yeah.
Jesus, I'm like, fuck. Like, I could sit and spar and punch and kick for an hour straight, and be like the happiest guy alive. And then, oh, yeah, we'll
Mhm.
do an hour of drilling, and then we're gonna roll for an hour. And my heart would just sink. I'm like, oh Christ, I got to do this stuff. So I got really, really good, really, really fast at
Mhm.
holding people in guard, not advancing any. There was like, I would just not advance position. I wouldn't do anything, and I would just scoot back to the cage or the ring and just try to stand up. That was my
Mhm.
jujitsu.
Oh, you're that
I,
guy.
I am that guy.
Yeah.
I fought like that. I had no submission stuff whatsoever. I could have cared less if I ever subbed anybody. And people don't. So you watch one championship, because I know we've talked about it before. There's a huge difference
Yeah.
between grappling in a cage and grappling in a ring, and then grappling in like an open
Mhm.
mat. And that was something that
Yeah.
I actually gravitated to a little bit more, because you can use the cage as, as like an assist. If you can sweep somebody by bracing your feet
Mhm.
off the cage, bridging off, and doing stuff like that. I mean, yeah, I learned how to very quickly manipulate a cage and manipulate a ring if needed, to help me out with my grappling. I mean, it was definitely an adjustment, last year, to go back to more of like an open mat style grappling, back to like, my high school days,
Yeah.
and club wrestling and stuff like that, where you don't have that support system. You have to rely on a little bit more. Actually, I'm going to say a little bit, but a lot more technique, a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be a lot cleaner, in my opinion. Like, in the open mat, than, because with the cage can get in the if you get taken down, they can get, into the top person's way. They get like the bottom person can use it to sweep, the top person can, use it to pass. Like, yeah, in the open mat, I mean, you're basically have to rely on your own technique, your own skill, and your own want to, if that makes sense. Like you have to, you're basically doing it on your own. Yeah, but yeah, I was that guy. I'm proudly that guy. I was the stand-up guy. It doesn't work to stand up.
Yeah.
I I heard that for a long time.
Yeah.
I started training, yeah, obviously. There was a couple places up in Harford County, Maryland, which is about 30 miles north of Baltimore,
Hmm.
where you and I are both very familiar with. Life happens, right?
Yes.
So, right. I train at a place in Towson where right down the street from where I went to college, called Monroe Hall BJJ, and it's
Yeah.
American Muay Thai, where it's Muay Thai, kickboxing, and at the American Boxing Academy, all three of them are right there. So I was with AMT for years, like just years training there with those guys. And when they merged in with Monroe Hall BJJ,
Hmm.
like I knew Monroe and I knew a couple of the people over there because some of them all used to train at Baltimore BJJ. And then one day, one of the
Yeah.
coaches was like, "Why don't you come in and roll with us? We heard you had a blue belt." I'm like, "Yeah, right. I haven't rolled, and
Hmm.
it was like years by this point in time." So I go in, I get beat
Hmm.
up, I want to puke, and 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 that's the thing. It's like people don't understand grappling shape is way different than boxing shape or kickboxing shape. It's a different,
Yeah. I can see
uh,
that.
yeah, because the sustained cardio that you would need, or the aerobic fit that you need, like for boxing or kickboxing, I would run a lot, and you would just spar and
Hmm.
hit mitts and hit pads, and you would drill your technique, but you did everything at such like a high level, or not high level. Well, we want to do it at a high level, but like a high pace, to sustain your heart rate and everything. Grappling is, I would say, it's more of akin to resistance training. And you're pushing, you're pulling, you're
Hmm.
tugging, you're fighting, and in a very close, intimate setting, and that lactic acid that builds up quick if you're not used to it. And let's say I miss like 3 or 4 days worth of training, like that first day back, I'm like, oh whoa, it's like you feel it. It takes you a little bit longer to get warmed up.
Yeah.
You're like,
Hmm.
wow. So yeah. So yeah, Monroe Hall, shoot him a Google search him. He's a great guy. Like I said, we got Pat Downey in with us, helping us. That's worth its weight in gold. Every time he comes in. We have another guy. Yeah, another guy who comes in with us, Chris Quirk. He trains at Baltimore BJJ, but he comes in and helps us out. He won European Pans, I think, at purple belt. Like really just high level
Hmm.
guy. Just so knowledgeable,
Hmm.
so real nice too. Like these guys are, that's what the one thing I do like is that everybody, they're so willing to give back. Like even me, like I
Yeah.
give, I have a lot of experience, and I talk to the younger guys about like, hey, look, maybe try to do something a little bit slower here, tighten up something a little bit here. And it's just making sure that they're successful, because then they can pass it down, and then
Yeah.
just, and that's just for combat sports in general. It's like if you have a good lineage, then
Hmm.
your stuff is going to grow regardless. And then you want to have people do stuff the right way, the clean way. You know, there's a lot of
Hmm.
places out there. I'm not going to get into. I've trained at some of them where what they say, cheating was almost required. Like
Mm.
one example I had, I was in a fight camp back in 2011 in the place I was training, and the coach was like, "Yeah, so if you get
Hmm.
taken down, get an underhook, and then when you're underhooking, take your other arm and put your fingers inside the person's MMA glove so they can't move, and then you can kick
Oh.
them away and stay right, just like dirty moves like that. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
do
Very
people
true.
does that stuff happen? Yeah. Like, am I going to sit there and say,
Hmm.
my in my last liquid swords match against Oliveri, that I didn't grab his shorts? Yeah, I'm sure I grabbed his damn shorts. He grabbed mine. I mean, it happens in the heat of the moment, you know. he punched me.
Yeah.
He accidentally punched me in the nose with his forearm, and I gave him a receipt. I bitch slapped him in the side of the head, and we're all cool now. But it's something that happens.
Yeah.
There was no ill intent with me and him. It was just, it was a
Yeah.
great it was a great match that we had. But, like, yeah, but there was
Mhm.
no, like, he's not cheating. I'm not cheating. It's just sometimes, like you go to grab somebody in a Noki match and, you might grab their shorts or grab their rash guard or, hopefully you don't poke them in the eye or, you might
Yeah.
step on their foot. But yeah, like there's accidental stuff sometimes. But yeah, but going out and
Yeah.
doing dirty stuff like that, I don't, no, that's not right.
Mhm.
That's just I don't even entertain stuff
Yeah.
like that.
There's a big difference between like an I do mostly gi. Like if your fingers incidentally go inside their sleeve and you realize it and pull them out versus like, you know, getting illegal grips and trying to hide it. It's a big difference for
Right.
sure.
It and it's funny you should mention that because I make now, and I mean this, a concerted effort at least once a week to train in a gi
Mhm.
because the way Monroe has
Yeah.
us work, he's a little bit more like old school where
Mhm.
so I came from somewhere else, but it he was just
Mhm.
like, okay, you're gonna get a purple belt under this guy. But he was like, he ran me through the ringer a bunch just because it's like, hey, look, I need to make sure that, you know what you're doing under my system, which I'm perfectly fine with. But yeah,
Yeah.
but doing gi jujitsu now is a must for me. Like, because if I know that if I don't do I know it's like skipping leg day at the gym. If you don't do it, you're just not going to. It's like, yeah, I have to do it now. Right.
Don't skip
Yeah.
gi day.
You
Never
can't,
skip gi day.
you can't. I make a concerted effort at least once a week. If I could do twice, my idea is twice, but once a week, just to, do gi. And
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize, and I'm sure that, you hear it. I didn't believe it until just recently, is that gi will make your no gi better because in gi you have to be very
Yeah.
clean. You have to be so clean with your technique. You have to be so clean with the way that with your grips and everything. No gi, you can get away with a lot. I mean, you're literally wrestling around with another sweaty human being, and you can slip and slide and do all types of wild stuff in a scramble. You
Mhm.
don't get those crazy scrambles in gi jujitsu.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe at like the lower level, maybe like white
Yeah.
belt, blue belt, but when you get up to like purple, brown,
Yeah,
and
but
black,
not the black belts, no.
no, no, like very, very
Mhm.
rare. Like even a lot of the purple belt matches that I've had, you don't get they're like the scrambles are very quick. Like when I was younger, like I
Mhm.
remember my first blue belt match, it was at a Naga. It was like some wild, crazy, like 5 minute like sprint, just like position switches and everything. Like
Mm.
when you're like in the older divisions and you just don't, we just don't have the energy for that. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like sometimes like you look at you, yeah, yeah, you look at your opponent and they look at you and you're like you're like, huh. I guess we gotta go, right? Like somebody do something. But yeah,
Yeah.
but not to get too far off, but no, but gi is definitely like a requirement for me. Plus I get to see different people too, and that's the cool thing about at least where I train. I mean, I kind of train it obviously with Monroe, and then I go to another place, and like if I have to work late, I'm really good friends with the people from Gamma. They're a Balance affiliate, and they're
Mhm.
affiliated with Baltimore BJJ. It's owned by a guy named Greg Liu, super nice guy. Always lets me come in and train. Known him for years, but I started doing their open mats on Sunday night. They just moved, so they're not having it tonight, which kind of freed me up for this. But on Sunday nights, they do open mat.
Yeah.
And I got to become friends and
Mhm.
cool with a lot of people in that gym just from going to their open mat. Everybody there is super chill, super relaxed. And you get a lot of like, it's like when you go somewhere else to train, get a lot of like different looks, different feel, and how somebody else does something. You can exchange some knowledge, even if it's literally like
Yeah.
the neighbor gym, or the gym that everybody where you train is friends with those guys and they're friends with you. You guys do the seminars together, you guys do
Yeah.
everything. It's still pretty cool to, like, have that rapport with two places. I like it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't trade that stuff for the world, you know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah. I just spent, almost 2 hours at an open mat today, and it's not my gym. It's the gym that the owner of gave one of my professors his black belt. And so it's kind of like we're in like like kind of, like cousins almost, like because of that. And at this
Yeah,
point, like my professor's always there. There's a lot of black belts there that I know at this point, and everyone's really friendly, really nice. We had a lot of girls there today. It was very good vibes. I came out of it just like in the best mood.
that's awesome. That's actually what I refer to the people at Gamma. I'm like your weird grappling cousin that shows up. They
Hmm.
they laugh and they're like, yeah, pretty much. Because but that's a great atmosphere. That's cool that you can go
Yeah.
somewhere and people are welcoming, and it's given back and forth between, not just, those two places, but other places like in the area. If because like I said, we all have friends at other places. Like, we don't like those gyms
Yeah.
that get really upset, like, oh, well, you went somewhere else to train for the night. Well, we're not like isolated human beings here. We have friends that train in other places. They just may not,
Mhm.
or people that you might have trained with in the past, and they might have went somewhere else, and then you went somewhere
Yeah.
else, and your buddy calls you up and is like, "Hey, why don't you come and do a class, do open mat, roll, and make sure that you have to bring the beer or whatever the case is." And it's like, "Oh, okay." That's kind of like our Sunday open mats too. Like, we sometimes we bring
Yeah.
like have a couple cold ones after you're done rolling around with a bunch of damn sweaty men.
It's very, very alpha right there.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I just had a flashback to my
Yeah.
younger days.
Jesus. Oh, Jesus, Joe. Well, on that note, because this is a women's podcast, let's talk about the fact that you were a girl dad.
Oh my God, can you get over that? A girl dad. Yeah, yeah. Sarah and Melissa. You
You
remember both?
are.
I know. I'm proud to be a girl dad. I'm also a girl uncle. I'm a girl dad and a girl
I
uncle.
know.
So Sarah and Melissa, they're 9 and almost 8. Can you get over that? 9 and almost 8.
Hmm.
So I got Sarah into
I mean, I knew you
training.
before Melissa was born.
That's true. Yeah, so I remember I got Sarah into training when she was 5. And she trains at a place. She now has braces, so she's can't really train right now. And that's kind of like my call.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want her getting hit and then all that, like the dental work and everything. So she wants to go back.
Yeah. That shit's expensive.
Uh, Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you that it gave her a lot of confidence, and
Hmm.
for like a 5-year-old who had a little bit of anxiety and who really was, for the lack of a better word, just really shy and didn't want to get out there. I mean, she told me last week, and she's like, "Daddy, the only sports I'm really good at is fighting." Because I asked her, I was like, "Hey, look, if you can't wrestle, right?" Because she can't wrestle right now. She can't do jujitsu, and so I'm like, "Hey, do you want to play? You want to play softball?" I played baseball growing up. I played in high school. I was pretty good. I'm like, "Why don't you want to play baseball?" No, or I mean, well, softball. No. Do you want to do anything? She's like, no, and when she said the only thing I'm good at is fighting, I'm like, I don't know if I was really scared or happy, or that's like a big thing when your little girl is like, the only sport I'm good at is, being able to beat the crap out of somebody. That's definitely, as a girl dad, that's that yeah, I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, I still got to process that too. And I have little Melissa, she wants to start training. And
Yeah.
she's
Oh,
in the
that.
dance. Yeah, she's into dance and gymnastics. I think she would be very good. She's like a little
Mhm.
very wiry. I mean, I could see
Mhm.
her, definitely having like, like a real slick game to her just because of the, the way she's built and everything.
Mhm.
Sarah's built like me. She's just like nothing but like
Mhm.
raw power, and I like I mean, go like deadlift a Buick, do a power double, and yeah, yeah, what can I say? It's like the father daughter team right there. Like I remember I showed her how to do a,
Mhm.
just like a blast double, and she took to it, just prep step, drop the knee, cut the angle, and could just take somebody down. I'm like, that's my girl. I remember her first
That's fantastic.
yeah, oh, her first wrestling match, she didn't understand. I'm like, no, Sarah, you don't have to submit anybody. Just go to side control. And I said side pin, or pin
Mhm.
just because of, wrestling. And she's like, she didn't understand. I'm like, Sarah, just go to side control. She's like, okay. She literally went, took the girl down with the side control and pinned the girl in about 7 or 8 seconds. And it was like, and she's like, I won. And I'm like, Yeah, she's like, I didn't have to do anything else. I'm like, no, Sarah, this is wrestling. It's not jujitsu. It, it, it's funny when, and I'm sure that you see it. I like when like the little kids are out there, especially when they're young like that, when they're like that, 4, 5, 6 years old, 7 years old. It's like herding cats too.
Mhm.
I mean, like they are an absolute what? It's true. That's like I got that from a parent
Yeah, no,
actually.
it's so right.
Yeah, I mean, they're like running around doing all types of crazy stuff, and you're like, "Hey guys, we're going to work on your break
Mhm.
falls," and they just are like falling on their head, like, "Oh God!" Like it's so fun, and some of them are so cute too. They're just like the cutest little kids, and you're
Mhm.
like, "Wow!" Like you ask them to pay attention, and they have the attention span of like like 3 seconds, and then it's like they're off doing whatever.
Kids class at my gym is like the guy who teaches it. It's so funny because like sometimes they come out of it, and he's just like you just see his face. He's like, I can't, because like I think it takes a very special person to teach kids classes because you've just got to have patience. You've got to, I mean, they're adorable, and I imagine it's very rewarding. But yeah, they're definitely like herding
It,
cats is a good word for it.
yeah, it's like you'll have like the 3 or 4 that are like over the top intense. Maybe it's because of their parents or something. And it's like what is it
Yeah.
like the 10, 80, 10 principle? You have like the 80 that'll go either way. You have like the 10% that'll be like way over the top, and then you have the other 10% that you're like, dude, can you just sit still for 5 seconds, please? And then you have everything in between.
Hmm.
Actually, one of our wrestling coaches, just got hurt by a kid, and he fractured his tibia and I think his fibia, and I think he messed up his patella. And yeah, it was one of the kids. It was a newer kid, and it was like they were because
Hmm.
wrestling season's about to start, and they were drilling
Hmm.
single leg, and the kid he's a bigger kid too. He's like 13, but he's you know built like a grown
Hmm.
man, and they were doing a just a single leg drill, run
Yeah.
the pipe, just run the pipe. The kid lost his balance and
Hmm.
fell on it, fell on the wrestling coach, and just snapped his leg. So I mean, it was it's like a
Oh,
freak accident, right? And it's like one of those like freak accidents
yeah.
that you would never think would happen. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a kid. Yeah, well, when your kid is built like a grown man, and they don't have the body control
Yeah.
that you and I have. We're developed. We train. We also know how to like pump the brakes and like, hey, look, we're just gonna
Yeah.
take the path of least resistance here. Where some of these kids, they don't have any
Mhm.
body control and all they know is like full speed ahead. And yeah, it was a shame.
Yeah.
Perry Hall Wrestling's looking for a new coach now. Well, at least a new drilling coach. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely
Oh man. Yeah. It sounds like the perfect storm of circumstances.
right. But anywho, back to being a girl dad and watching I really honestly believe, and this is a, obviously, this is geared towards women. I am a big fan of women training, and maybe not just exclusively training with women. I mean, you could train with men. Like you just train to train. Like if some people are like, I only want my women's class. I don't feel
Yeah.
comfortable with men. That's fine. I just I look at it like we're all adults. If we all want to train together, we train together. We
Yeah.
don't want to train. But I also understand, and I'm going to be very fair about this. It can be intimidating, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. That first time you ever walk
Mm-hmm.
into the gym as a female and you don't know anything. I mean, heck, it's intimidating
Mm-hmm.
for a guy. I can just imagine, like a 22-year-old college student female who comes in, and then you have like the older guys like me who are like, yeah, whatever, okay. Then you have like all like the 22-year-old guys that, they're like, their eyes just pop out. They're like, oh my God, a female. They've like never seen a girl before. Yeah, but I take my hat off to a
Yeah.
lot of females who actually come. It takes a lot of intestinal fortitude, in my opinion, to walk into a predominantly male-dominated place and like, oh, okay, I'm going to
Mm.
do this and I'm going to compete. That takes a lot of courage, and anybody who does that, I mean, good for them. Like you can't measure that type of like intangible intestinal fortitude. You just can't.
Yeah. No, I think women's classes and women's programs are like a great entry point to get women in, and then hopefully down the road they can get comfortable training with men. But I think at the end of the day too, like there are some women who've been through things in their lives where they just maybe will never be there. And
For
as long
sure.
as they're, it doesn't matter how you train as long as you train. The one thing I will say is the one time I would disapprove of a woman only training with other women is if she's doing it because her significant other has a problem with her training with men.
Yeah, yeah, that's insecurity. That's
That,
that's just like that's a sign of immaturity, insecurity. I mean, come on,
yeah,
man.
that's like a
Like
big red flag.
yeah, you think that's called like you're a control freak, and you just can't.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's not good. Definitely not cool.
yeah. But I've definitely dated men that I think would have been like that. And luckily, my current partner, I was in Delaware for family vacation, and he went with me to a no gi class, and then for the gi class he didn't want to train, so he drove me there and went to breakfast, and then he was like sitting outside, and I was the only girl training in the class. I was training with a class full of guys, and he was just like, you have a good time. And that's how it should be.
Oh, yeah, I know. I missed you down the beach because it was Sarah's birthday. We were like ships passing in the night.
Oh.
I know.
Yeah, we were just in Bethany,
Yeah,
like just chilling.
Where did
Yeah,
you where did you did you train at Riptide when you were over there?
yeah, I trained at Riptide. They
Really, they're really nice. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to hit them this last time I was down there. I did Gracie because I know a couple of those guys just from doing kickboxing, and they were
yeah.
a bang Muay Thai school, and that's I came up in that program for a
Hmm.
little bit. I go in there, hang out with them, roll with those guys, but dude, they had a great open mat on the Saturday I was down there. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just a lot of people from Rising Tide Jiu Jitsu were there. Myself, another guy from my school.
Hmm.
We just happened to run into each other down there, and we kind of like looked at each other like, dude,
Hmm.
we can't get house down here. You know that, right? We have to represent. He's like, I know. It's like, you go in there by
Yeah.
yourself. It's like, okay, you're gonna go in there, but if you're going there with one of your training partners, somebody you roll with relatively frequently, you're like, dude,
Hmm.
you gotta ratchet it up just a little bit. Now, I'm not saying you go out and act like a dick or anything,
Hmm.
but there's that thing. It's like, hey, look, it's like gym pride, not like just enough competitive nature to be like, okay, we gotta, just do it a little bit. I'm not saying like competition
And see,
hard,
I think
just
that might
yeah.
be like a difference. I think that might be like a difference in perspective because I've never, like, when I'm going into another gym, I'm like, don't piss anybody off, don't get banned, don't embarrass yourself, don't make your gym look bad, but like also don't like
Oh no, you're 100% correct. Like I don't I'm actually wrong. I'm
Yeah.
actually agreeing with you. Like whenever I go somewhere else, 99 times I'm like, "Oh yeah, we're just, just be cool, humble, train roll." But like, it's like if you have one of your friends
Mhm.
with you and they're kind of like egging you and you're kind of egging them and you're like, "Oh, okay." Sometimes
Yeah.
peer pressure can kick in. So anyway, for training purposes, like when you said, you like ratchet up the training
Mhm.
and everything. I remember, do you guys do the
Yeah.
ecological method? We were texting a while ago. Do you do the ecological method out there? Or do you know what that is?
I've heard of it. I think I've listened to other podcasts about it. I don't know that like the true
So,
ecological method, I haven't actually encountered in training.
so we're almost transitioning to that. So the guy from Standard BJJ, I think he's like right down where you grew up in Moco. He he's kind of created this
Okay.
whole like different type of training program. And I'm not saying that we're like
Mhm.
basically like stealing it because obviously, it's the knowledge is out there, but we're actually starting to train a little bit more like that. So we do this thing called task-based games, and so one class or two. Well, I mean, and this is actually every week or every day, Monday through Thursday, and Saturday as well, where it's like basically you'll drill one for an hour and then you'll do situationals for an hour. Like, okay,
Yeah.
like you start with like 6 minutes, somebody's on your back. The way the person wins, they choke you, mount you. The way you win is you escape, get back to a guard, any type of guard like Vale Tudo, got a butterfly guard, a half guard.
Mhm.
Quarter guards don't count. Roll through a turtle. By the way, I
Mhm.
got a sick turtle game. Like this is, I'm toe holding people out of a
Ooh.
turtle position. I'm not bragging too, but it's just something. Oh, dude, I like turtle for an old man and turtle. I literally will let people take my back now, sweep them and sub them. That's how bad my knees are. Like, but
Mhm.
this training has actually unironically helped me with that just because of the
Mhm.
way that you start like positionally and you have to navigate yourself through the position. So I don't have to worry about wrestling anymore, which is like was so counterintuitive because our friend Timmy, I used to rag on him because I'm like, dude, you can't wrestle, your wrestling's trash, you suck, blah blah blah. And I'm like, we're complete opposites now. He's like, Joe, all I do is wrestle now. And I'm like, I can't wrestle to save my life. I'll lock up and fall to the ground.
Mhm.
I'm like touch over. I can't. It's so
Mhm.
funny, like how like when you start doing something, like how your perspective of it, or like the way that you will do it, will change just because
Mhm.
of like the situation that you're in. And I really actually enjoy training like that. Now, I can't do it. You can't do it every day
Yeah.
because like when you go hard
Yeah.
every day, you go hard every day like that. So you drill and then you roll afterwards. I mean, you're sometimes talking 2.5 to three
Mhm.
hours of just punishment on your body, and
Yeah.
it's rough on you. It really is. I mean, if I was 22 years old, yeah, probably, but 20 years later, no. It's just you have to,
Yeah.
pick pick your battles. And honestly, training partners. Training partners is like if you don't have good training partners, like we all know the
Mhm.
person and we all have that person in our gym who you're trying to drill and they won't let you do anything and they'll try to wrist lock you in drilling, which everybody's got
Mhm.
that person, and you just sit there and you just shake your head. So actually finding like a stable person who almost like a like-minded mindset who so if I still compete, like I kind of want to train with the people who are actively competing. Like,
Mhm.
or I want to train with the people that are maybe they're a little bit past the competition phase, but they're like a tough matchup for me. Like there's
Yeah.
a gentleman that I train with, and he's a really good brown belt. He's a little older, but he's a tall,
Mhm.
lankier guy, and those guys are like my kryptonite. Like I'm a short, stocky little meathead here,
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
how do I solve this puzzle with this guy? And yeah,
Mhm.
I could just, overpower him, but it's just like he forces me to use technique and use skill and do things. Like I can't tell you
Mhm.
how many times this guy's hit me with a triangle from, back mount when he's just,
Mhm.
reverse triangled me or, done all types of crazy, nonsense to
Mhm.
me. And I'm like, you know what? Fine. I started toe holding him. That's where I developed my toe hold game. I have to neutralize people like that. So I'm like, I'm, I'm just grabbing your pinky toe and then we're going to go from there. That will, in not for nothing,
Mhm.
that will stop an attack very, very quickly. Like if you were getting choked,
No, I
toe hold them.
mhm.
Don't fight the choke, but don't listen to me. Don't. I do a lot of weird stuff
Yeah.
in grappling. Oh, I like the stuff that comes out of my mouth. I'm like, I'm going to do that move on you. Don't let me do it.
Mhm.
Please don't let me do that move. Oh, no, you didn't let me do that. Because I have so much fun training. I really do. Yeah. And if you don't have fun, there's no point in going. You get the camaraderie, and it attracts all people from all walks of life. You got people like me, people like you got people like, get like your hippie pot smoker that just walks in. Those dudes, and man, I don't understand some of those guys. They literally smoke weed all day, then they come in and just crush people training. I'm like, how? How is your cardio that good? I mean, I drink a soda in my cardio shot. Like these guys, like just hit, like doing bong hits, and I'm like, how? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's a mystery.
It damn sure is.
Yeah, but I think you bring up a good point about like, having good training partners. Maybe if it's whether it's people who compete or not, it's people that are constantly looking to improve versus like just spamming the same game every time and trying to outmuscle you so they can get the win.
Exactly.
I
It,
think that
and I know at Baltimore BJJ they have a sign and it says "Leave your ego at the door," and I really believe that. I think that everybody should, when you go into
Mhm.
those environments. I mean, you could be, they, like a Gordon Ryan or a Mikey or a Craig Jones or whoever,
Mhm.
even Pat. And I
Yeah.
guess I can use Pat as like the good example. He comes in and he could be like,
Mhm.
if he wanted to, he could be a big asshole and just crush everybody and just and walk out. But he doesn't. And it's a lot to be said for that where,
Mhm.
guys, they come in and they're still humble. Like you can have fun, you can joke around, you can play around, but at the end of the
Mhm.
day, when you're done, if you're rolling with somebody and they get the better of you or you get the better of them, you just say, "Hey, good job, man. Hey, how'd you do this?" Or "Hey, I like how you did this." Or they might
Yeah.
say, "Hey, how did you get to this position on
Yeah.
me?" Or "What did you do here?" Or
Yeah.
like that's what it's more about. And especially like if you do have the
Mhm.
me, you do still compete, maybe not as regularly as I used to, but and yeah, it's always good to, have those guys and girls actually. And you would sit there and be like, "Hey, look, hey, try it this way and it might work for you." And you have to do stuff that's conducive to your body type.
Mhm.
That's something that when I first started,
Mhm.
if
Absolutely.
you were my size, look, I'm not triangling a whole lot of people here. I'm not just not built
Mhm.
for it, I'm not built
Yeah.
for, arm bar from, my back. I mean, yeah, do I know how to the basic premises on how to do those things? Of course. Can I hit them on like a white belt? Yeah, a blue
Mhm.
belt probably. But anything other than that, no. And do I actively search for those things? Absolutely not. Like I'm getting passed and smashed if I try to throw up a triangle, an arm bar, any like no. I go for a Kimura from the bottom, then go to a turtle, and then
Mhm.
get a DeSoto hook. I mean, this is like my whole game right there. I can go for do some pre-Nicholson positions, and then search for a Doris choke, which, like I told you the other day, tried to Doris somebody, just didn't work out well for me. No, it's like when that person kind of looks at you like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I had to try something." It was like that moment.
Yeah. So I've
Don't
got a scenario for you.
Go ahead.
So today at open mat, this it was a guy, older male, white belt with like three stripes, came up and asked me to roll. And like, I'm very hesitant to roll with like male white belts just because I they're going to have a strength advantage on me that is like makes me less capable of controlling their spazziness, and I just don't want to get hurt. But I was like,
Okay.
well, he's got three stripes, I'll roll with him. And then he made this comment to me that was like, he was like, "Oh yeah, like I want to be offensive for once because like I've just been rolling with black belts all day." And I'm like, "You asked
What
a
a
blue belt
I'm
to
sorry.
roll so you can be
I
offensive."
I'm sorry. I almost went like I almost said what a dick. But I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. I'll edit that. Like,
No,
dude,
it was a very odd thing to say to me, and I was just like, "Whatever. I'm going to like play very conservatively with this person because it sounds like there is an ego coming into it, and I
exactly.
don't want to get hurt." So like the whole role, like I was very I'm like it's funny like the people that you breathe hard with versus the people you breathe easy with, and like you notice it. Like I can my breathing's very calm, like
Yes.
rolling with like white belts. But then like when I'm rolling with like, some of my teammates who have been training longer than me, just are better than me or whatever, all of a sudden they're like, I can hear you breathing, like, or they'll be like, you're not breathing, like you need to breathe, like stop being stupid. But anyway, so this guy, I'm just breathing easy. I'm just kind of just doing like techniques to kind of hold him off and like defend basically. This guy, he's shaking, like physically shaking. He's not spazzy. Luckily, he was not spazzy, but he's physically shaking and he is breathing so hard.
Was he a mouth breather?
And then at the end of the roll, that part of it, I didn't even like. There was
Okay.
no weird breath smell, so whatever.
Okay.
But like, then at the end of the roll, he was like, "Oh, like nice to be able to actually move or something like that." And I was just like, all right, like bye. Because I'm like, maybe I'm glad that you had that reaction to what he said to me at the beginning. Because I'm like, am I just being sensitive? Do I have a chip on my shoulder? It was weird.
No, no, that's a perfect. If he would have said that to me, like, "Oh, I'm bigger than you. I could just do." I'm like, I'll heel hook you." Like, no, like that's not cool. That's your problem. And I'm not, and that's not being like rude or insensitive. If you can't, okay, when I train with, like the really like it's weird like being one of the better guys. And then you go with and always remember there's always somebody better than you. There's a ton of people where I train that are better than me. And
There is.
there's a guy that
Yeah.
he should be a black belt, but he's a brown belt, and like those guys that they
Mhm.
sub everybody, even they sub the I
Mhm.
almost said the professor, but we on this side of the country we say coach, but it's just a nitpick. Anyway, yeah, like I go with him, and it's just like and I tell him like at the end of every roll, I'm like, I almost mounted like 12 seconds of offense on you, and that's like an accomplishment. And he just laughs, and he's like, "Well, you got to make me work
Yeah.
for it." But that's the thing. It's like when you're some 26-year-old physical specimen, and it's like, okay, just try your best. And I've literally had this guy locked up before, and he just kind of like just peels your, perfect defense, peels your arm off. You go for a mentally on, and he just peels your. I'm like, how? Like how do you get out of this stuff?
Yeah.
And it's demoralizing, but then you
Hmm.
realize it's not really demoralizing. In the moment, it is because you're like, oh, I almost, and then you realize like, no, you didn't. You weren't even close.
You never did.
Yeah, yeah, you were absolutely right to feel that way. Yeah,
Well,
that
and it was funny because at the end of it, when he made the comment about like, "Oh, I actually got to move this time," in my head, and I didn't say it. I just in my head, I thought, well, it wasn't because of your technique because he had so many holes in his technique, but he was muscling me. So like, if he was getting a sweep, it was because he muscled his way through.
that's
But I was
see,
just like,
and
all
that's
right, bro.
and that's the other thing. Back over the summer, there was like this real weird, like spazzy white belt kid who came to our open mat, and I'm not really like
Yeah,
I'm not one for like whatever. Like if you want to roll, we'll roll. I don't give a shit. And like
Yeah.
when you go like 1,000 miles per hour on me and then make a comment at the end, like I literally let you take my back because I can't wrestle anymore. So I just go sweep you and sub you. I mean, that's just, you
Yeah.
know, like panda, turtle, panda, and maybe like a leg lock heel hooker, but that's just my game now. And he's like, well, you're a purple belt. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well then we can go hard again. It's like, don't like make me turn that on. And I'm sure that in your case,
Hmm.
that if you really wanted to like crank up the intensity, you probably would have, you know, handled the guy on a serious note. Or if you would have cranked up the intensity after that stupid comment, he would have gone, 1,000 miles per hour. Then you have the spazzy white belt syndrome, and there you go. I mean, you're always gonna have.
Yeah.
I don't get guys like that. I really don't. Like, I'm not saying that
Hmm.
I don't roll with women because yeah, I mean you train with whoever's there some days.
Hmm.
But and this is people can
Yeah.
take this however they want. I don't go very hard unless I'm getting ready for competition. I'm mainly in there to have fun, work on
Yeah.
technique, and give some knowledge out, and and receive some knowledge. Now, competition, Joe, is a lot different. Like, if I'm in
Hmm.
camp and I'm like laser focused, and
Yeah.
there's like the specific people that you're going to train with to get you ready for whatever you're going to do, which is a lot different than like, hey, like, hey, let's get some rolls in. Hey, what do you want to work on? Not what I want to work on. What do you need to help
Yeah.
yourself? So for somebody to come in and act like
Hmm.
that, and obviously with a girl, smaller female, in the against the bigger guy, I mean, it's kind of like, when I train with females, I'm not out trying to like wreck them. That's idiotic. Like, because guess what? Some
Hmm.
of them, they need to get their work in too. Let's say they compete. Like, we have a couple girls that compete. Why would you shortchange somebody that if you don't have anything going on, if you don't have anything coming up, let the other people work because that's only going to help them because
Yeah.
guess what? When it's your turn, they are going to help you. That's one thing I've noticed about where I train. If somebody's got something coming up, you let them work and get whatever they need in to get them ready for whatever they're going to do.
Yeah.
And I know this because it
It's
was
their
done for
role.
me.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like when I had, if I'm
Hmm.
getting ready, everybody's like, "Hey, Joe, what do you need to work on? What do you got to do? Are we going to work on this? Are we going
Yeah.
to work, we're going to work arm bar defense, rear naked defense, all the situational stuff that we'll do." I mean, but those are, that's
Hmm.
always like that give and take. But for somebody to come in and say that, nah. See, that's where you need a mat
Hmm.
enforcer. Like and on a serious note, if I'd have heard that, I'd be
Well,
like, "Oh,
yeah.
you you can come with me next."
I went up to my teammate after the roll and I was like, he like said this to me and I was like, it was kind of weird. And he was like, I'll roll with him next. So
Yeah.
I'll have to
Yeah,
talk to him in class this week and get the report.
yeah, exactly. Like you don't do that. I mean, that's uh, like there's a difference between, somebody messing around or having fun or doing whatever, but oh yeah, I get to, pick on somebody's that just makes you a bully, dude. I mean, you don't do that. That's so not cool. Like why? Like your ego's that big.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, you're actually close to having your blue belt. Why would you even have that? Why would you even have that type of
Yeah.
mindset when you're actually close to, achieving a goal that, not a lot of people get to, and then they quit once they get to it.
Yeah. Well, and it's actually funny because like the black belts at this gym like are really nice about letting you work. I mean, they're like the cat that lets the mouse like just get like that far and then they turn it on so you think you almost have something like but they're really nice about letting lower belts work. So I'm like now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like why weren't the black belts letting you move? What did they see?
Well, yeah, that's something also that's a good point I didn't even think of. It's, I guess being like in the middle, I guess, I mean, like purple belt, brown belt, black belt, there's no discernible difference. Sometimes there is something like people have their own opinions on that stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, like the way like some of the black belts, they'll let me work, but then, I let the white and blue belt guys work, and then, you're pretty much even with the purples, and that's where the fun stuff is because that's where you're, you know, going back and forth, and that's when you're actually like, you're measuring yourself like against one of your peers. That's the best way I can. There's like a
Yeah.
whole little group of like purple belts that we all kind of roll with each other, like open mats and stuff like that. And it's like we're like all middle-aged men eyeing each other up. We're like, yeah, I got your ass today. And we're all, and then we walk out. We're like, oh,
Mhm.
jeez, why is my knee hurt? It's so funny. It's literally hysterical. Like, because we're like everybody, like we're all friends. Like we all see each other out. We all train together. But it's like when it comes out, it's
Mhm.
like who's less old? Like who's the less middle aged out of
Yeah.
all of us? That's kind of like how that is. But yeah, the black belts, yeah,
Oh, that's funny.
if they can just hold somebody, like, and they start like spazzing
Mhm.
out and everything. Yeah, that's definitely something that's definitely kind of like a red flag right there with somebody training, that you shouldn't actually, if you're that like out of control training, then yeah, you might want to, yeah, be cognizant of that person.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because he wasn't spazzy.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't a bad role, like, honestly, but it was just interesting. So that's also why the comments were so interesting, because I was like, if he had never said that to me, I would have been like, oh, that was a fun role. He's good to roll with. But it was like the weird comment.
I you know what? I would have taken that a little bit on a little bit to heart. I mean, because me being smaller, sometimes
Yeah.
you get like these bigger guys, and they think they can take liberties with you, and they're like, oh yeah, I get that, get like,
Yeah.
I can sub a higher belt, and I'm like, and no, you can't. And I'm actually going to say this, and
Mhm.
people, you could put it out there. The higher belts, and if you ever watch Matt Arroyo, he is 100% correct when he says this. We let you
Mhm.
do stuff. This is not like, you don't earn it. You don't get,
Mhm.
like, if I literally start in turtle and I let you get a hook in, and you can't sub me and you outweigh me by 100 pounds, you're just not, no. Or when you do, like, if you start in like a neutral position and it's a 50, where everybody's even, and I go, you go 100% and I go 100%, my 100% is going to be better than yours 99 times out of 100.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing where people don't understand that with the ego stuff. It's like you can,
Mhm.
like, I get it. Like I shoot, like I get crushed by some of these guys, and it's like they could crank up the intensity just a little bit, and it's like, wow. And it's like,
Mhm.
you just, you blow the doors off of somebody, and it's like, you really, when stuff like
Mhm.
that happens, you really find out how good you're not. And I think that that's an
Yeah.
important lesson when you're doing stuff like this. You really find out like how good you're not, because if you might train somewhere, you might be the best person there, and then you go to another gym,
Mhm.
and like, I trained at a spot in Hartford County, and I'll say this, their blue belts would have
Mhm.
crushed purple belts 12, 13 years ago at a lot of other places.
Mhm.
But that also goes into the whole thing of belts don't really mean a whole lot. I mean, do they really? I mean,
Mhm.
no. I mean, maybe
It's
like,
like,
maybe
I
in
think
like,
it's a personal gauge for progress.
correct, but I think as far as,
Yeah.
sometimes like it's not really indicative of like the skill set that someone has, because like I said, it's like, can you beat the 22-year-old Pan American blue belt champion? No, not
Mhm.
at all. And but like a guy my age,
Mhm.
yeah, like, yeah, that's going to be fun. That's going to be, we're going to be tit for tat and everything else. Because, and also,
Mhm.
like, age is a huge factor now. I know I might make
Mhm.
light of the fact, a little older, longer in the tooth. I mean, I take care of myself, like, still train, still run, still lift weights, still swim, but it's harder and harder to, fend off the younger guys. Now it's like, it's like
Yeah.
you don't really want to give up your spot, but it's like, well, they're just going to take it from you
Mhm.
anyway. So just, you're almost better off like here after a while, like, because we
Mhm.
got, we've got some really good young guys where I train, and guys 21, 22, 23 years old, and
Mhm.
they're really, really good. I mean, that what I think like a 19-year-old purple
Mhm.
belt where I train. 19. I mean, imagine what he's going to be like at 25. Like those young kids, man. I mean, what do they say, father time is undefeated. Well, yeah, there's a lot of truth to that because
Mhm.
they say the young lions have to eat the old lion.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just a fact of life. But every now and again,
Mhm.
you have to dial it up when you get somebody like that and be like, nah, buddy, you can't bully people. You can't do that. Like, oh, I got to
Yeah.
get some moves in, or I got to do this, I got to do that. That's definitely sounds like more of like a personal issue that that person would have had rather than
Yeah.
actually, using some sort of like skill or, thought process. On top of which, if you know you're going to get crushed like that, then why don't you just, I don't know how you guys do it. Like I know that you go to an ATO
Mhm.
school, don't you? Isn't that like your primary?
I don't
It's
know.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, my
Are they
primary school is actually yeah, no. No, Atos is act the headquarters is here in San Diego. I've taken classes from people who train at Atos, but no. So my gym is it's a UFC gym, so
Oh,
like
okay.
no affiliation, but our head professor, he's in Hickson Gracie's lineage. So it's very traditional Brazilian Gracie lineage, which is why it's so gi focused.
Okay. Now, do you guys concentrate on the self-defense portion of it at all, or no?
No, no,
Right?
no. Our curriculum is it's a classic sport jujitsu curriculum.
Yeah, see, we're kind of like a mixture of both. So Monroe will have us do like combat jujitsu. I mean, we're not like, ground and pounding each other, but learning like at least one day a week
Mhm,
doing like a basic self-defense portion of it, like for like real world
mhm.
applicate like the real world application, especially with the job I have, like
Yeah,
learning how to like control
yeah.
an arm, control a leg, manipulate clothing. And I don't think that there's anything. I honestly was against that because I'm like, oh, that's stupid because I already do this stuff. But once you do it, you realize like, hey, look, this can help you, and
Mhm,
it's practical for like the real world, and especially honestly for the women's classes, like that would be something that a little that a little bit can go a long way with that. You give women like the self-confidence that they need, like, hey, look, you got an attacker, somebody comes in on you, and then how to like
mhm,
grab their collar, grab their sleeve, get the hell away from them, throw them to the ground. And that's something that, once again, girl dad, that I can hopefully Sarah,
mhm.
Melissa, obviously, my nieces, and they can, defend themselves. And that's it's like as I've gotten
Yeah.
older, I've changed my thought process on a lot of that stuff. I used to think when I was younger, I'm like, oh, that stuff's garbage. I'll just kick somebody in the liver, knock them out, the end. Now it's like,
Mhm.
no, like fights go to the ground a lot. Fights do a lot of stuff that,
Yeah.
that's the reason why it's a fight. You don't know what's going to happen, but if you can control the narrative by, having common sense enough to like,
Mhm,
latch on to, especially, it's getting cold out here. These people, they're wearing huge clothes
mhm,
and everything. Somebody's not getting away from you. You grab a hold of them, and
mhm,
you can control them until, help arrives if needed. It's not a, yeah, it's
mhm.
one of those, I would say like practical application is very, very good with that.
Yeah. Well, and like the part about, the fight going to the ground with women, if we're in a situation like, intimate partner assault scenario, you're probably already on the ground or you're not standing when the need to use some kind of defense mechanism arises. So I think that's another part of where jujitsu, I think, can really have practical application for self defense for women.
Yeah, for sure. I like it, like just something basic like learning how to like frame. Like a lot of people wouldn't understand
Hmm.
that, but like framing, pushing your leg down, grapevining a leg, getting an underhook, shrimping back. all of those things are all applicable in those situations. Like, especially if a female is being attacked, I
Mhm.
mean, those would be things like a Turkish get up or a technical stand up, like, learning how to just
Yeah.
press press off. I mean, those are skills that they may not look like much when you're
Mhm.
doing them, but let somebody jump on top of you and try to do something to you. I mean, you are
Mhm.
I'm telling you, I am so glad that, like, I know how to do that stuff. Just because it's like,
Yeah.
just, God forbid something happens, and all the gloves are off and you have to, do something like that. It's a it's a
Yeah.
very, very, very valuable skill to have.
Absolutely. Can I tell you the story of how our head professor taught the technical stand up? It's the most Brazilian story.
Does he say it with a Brazilian
So,
accent? Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
oh yeah, he's Brazilian. So he's like, so imagine you're sitting on the beach in Brazil and this guy comes up and he wants to fight you. And he's like, so you push him away with your foot and then and then he teaches the stand up. So his scenario is like you're sitting on a beach in Brazil and like someone comes and challenges you to a fight.
What the? Okay. I didn't know it was
Brazilians,
like
man.
that.
It's
I, I
apparently back in the day in Brazil it was like that.
and people just walk up like, "Hey, do you want to throw down?" Like, wow, really? That's actually pretty funny. You never would think of
Yeah.
it though. You just lay it lounging on the
Yeah.
beach and like, "Hey, what's up?" Like, what? Why you want to fight? That's something
I don't know, man.
I've I've gotten to the point in my life where, like, I don't even want to fight anymore. Like physical altercation outside of, like, competition or training is like, and
Yeah.
don't do that stuff. It's not it's just not
Mhm.
worth it. It's not worth it. Like Monroe has
It's
the saying. He said, "You're training to fight Chad at the bar." I'm like, "Well, I don't really go to the bar anymore." And I'm like, "Why is it Chad?" He's like, "It's every frat bro's name is Chad." I'm like, "First of all, I'm going to get it out of
it
him.
is.
I'm going to get it out of him that he had some altercation with a guy named Chad, and I'm going to get the whole story." It's the last thing I do.
Mhm.
Because like he literally was like, "Yeah, well, if Chad at the bar tries this on you, or Chad," I'm like, "You have a half brother named Chad that you hate? You like, what the heck?" Like, Chad did something to him, and I will figure it
Yeah.
out.
I think
Yeah,
it is like Chad is every like frat bro full of testosterone. It's like
that's
Chad or Brad.
Brad. Yeah, I get it.
But
B-Rad.
be right. Oh my god. I do have one last question for you.
Go ahead.
What piece of advice would you give to somebody going into their first class, like first day?
Uh, just come back, because it's overwhelming the first day, and you have to give it a chance. You don't sit there
Yeah.
and get discouraged, because I mean, my first day was just terrible. Like, I'll be honest with you, you're going to get beat up, and even if you don't roll the first day, and I know that some
Mhm.
schools don't allow that. I know some schools do, so that's just a personal preference. If you feel comfortable in trying something, then, good for you. But don't you have to understand that you're probably not going to be in shape for grappling. You're not going to be in shape for the strenuous activity. And then, you're not going to have like the muscle memory that the other people have. And there's a lot that you don't think about. And as I've gotten older, I'm like, yeah, these are things I'm like, oh crap, yeah, like I didn't have this and I didn't have that and I didn't have muscle maturity, the muscle memory, the
Mhm.
wherewithal to do this. And it's just a mindset. Like what they say, leave your ego at the door. Just understand the fact that you have to leave your ego at the door and go in there to learn.
Mhm.
Don't go in there thinking, "Oh, I'm
Mhm.
gonna I'm gonna beat somebody up. I'm gonna tap somebody out," because that's not gonna happen. It's just not. And
Yeah.
and hopefully when people see this, they're like, "Hey, look, just take that mentality." And that doesn't matter where you are too. Like you could be out here Northeast Mid-Atlantic, like I am, where we're really intense, or the
Hmm.
laid back atmosphere out in California where you guys are, where everybody's very polite. That I've trained when I've trained out there, everybody's way nicer. I don't like it. It's weird. I don't have somebody mean to me. Maybe that's just you know what? But that's just that East Coast thing. I like, hey, look, we could be cool, but I
Yeah.
like a little bit of like, hey, uh, a little that makes sense. All right. Hey, before we wrap up, can I give a shout out to my friend Diego, who sponsors me and sponsors a bunch of us? Is that
Yeah,
allowed?
yeah, go for it.
All right. All right. So, hey, so anybody who
Yeah,
sees this,
absolutely.
hey, can you check out my friend Diego Ortiz? He's does Silverback Stripes. So he outfits a lot of us at our school. He's a great guy. It's a local company. He does my rash guard, my grappling shorts. And if I ever decide to dabble in one last MMA fight, he's actually designing a pair of MMA shorts for me. Great guy. Go on his website, silverbackstripes.com. He's got one UFC fighter that he's sponsoring right now, a guy from Ground Control out in Owings Mills, and and then he does a bunch of the
Hmm.
regional stuff for us, like the guys who compete in Liquid Swords, Good Fight, and some of the IBJJF, BJJF people out here. So, like I said, please check him out. Show him some love.
Yeah, we'll drop him in the show notes.
I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah,
All
of
right.
course. All right, Joe, thank you so much. It's been great catching
Hey,
up.
dude, it was so fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
All
Well,
right. I'll catch you later.
hey, when you come east for the holidays, if you do, hit me up. We'll try.
Yeah, I'll be out east. Yeah, that would be great. I'll introduce you to the boyfriend. You can Darce choke him. He loves that. He loves getting Darce choked.
Well, I don't want to know, Laura. That's kind of
It happened. No, it happened. Someone choked it. Like he got choked at Riptide. He was like, "This guy choked me with my own arm. It was pretty cool." I'm like, "I think you got Darce, baby."
Oh God. Oh, okay, good. I'm glad you put a caveat. I don't need any. All right. Hey, it was great catching up. It really was. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you too.
All
All
right. I'll see
right.
you later.
Take
Take care.
care. All right. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed my chat with Joe. And if you're out there and you want to talk jujitsu with me, share your story of how you got into it, what you love about it, your challenges, anything specific about jujitsu and how it fits into your life, I would love to have you on the podcast. This is all about sharing stories and talking about how much we love jujitsu. If you want to do that, send me a message, bjjbabespodcast@gmail.com. Would love to chat with you. And with that, until next week, goodbye.